Welcome to In Conversation with writer and editor Sheila Bender, discussions on the writing life, a monthly chat with writers, publishers, and those who support the literary arts.
Hello, you're listening to Sheila Bender, and today we're in conversation with Stephanie Tivona Wright. She's a Port Townsend resident and also an ordained rabbinic chaplain who currently works as an interfaith chaplain and bereavement support coordinator for Hospice of Jefferson Healthcare. She is also a pastoral counselor and spiritual director. In addition, what brings her to our show is that she's a published writer and skilled teacher of writing. Chaplaincy is her encore career after 25 years in the environmental communication field, including serving as executive director of the Jefferson Land Trust from 2004 to 2006. Stephanie's been writing in a very particular form, an outgrowth of her training for chaplaincy, and today we're going to be talking about poetry in the form of psalms. So I'd like to begin by having Stephanie tell us a little bit about how she started writing in this genre.
Thank you, Sheila. It's a delight to be here. My relationship with biblical psalm goes back almost to my childhood. Psalms were part of almost every religious tradition I was involved in, except for my 20 years in Buddhist practice. And as part of my rabbinic training, I took a biblical history class. And that was the first time I really started learning about psalms as poetry. Psalms as their written structure, their historical background, how they were used in history. And I became fascinated, just fascinated by that. And then also during my 2 years of hospital chaplaincy down in Olympia, when I was training down there, I also found that psalms were a wonderful interfaith tool. So many different faith traditions honor them, use them, and even those that don't, the biblical psalms have kind of a universal voice that I could use with many, many different patients, and as we'll probably talk later, have a way of moving and journeying psychologically and emotionally through sometimes very little text in a way that can be very helpful when people are suffering or when people are rejoicing. And so it just became this wonderful tool. And then the next step was, before my ordination, I set for myself a practice that I was going to study a psalm a day. So I did for over 5 months. I read every single psalm, one after another, in the Hebrew and then in the English, and really journaled about what was coming to me through those psalms, and found myself setting some of them to music, and then found myself writing my own. So that's kind of the overview journey.
Thank you. So when you say that they work on an interfaith level and people who are suffering or very joyous in celebration really relate to the psalms, I know you love them all, but are there some that come to the tip of your tongue? Say one about suffering, one about joy, or some lines?
Well, actually, I'll just pick one because it's quite short, and I think it indicates some of what I like so much about Psalms. So this is a translation of Psalm 13. Today I'll be doing some in Hebrew, but for right now, just to get the sense of kind of the storyline. So this is Psalm 13. And a characteristic of psalms are kind of sudden mood changes, or starting in one psychological place and ending up someplace else. So in only 6 lines, that's what this poem does. So Psalm 13. How long, O Lord, will you forget me always? How long hide your face from me? How long shall I cast about for counsel, sorrow in my heart all day? How long will my enemy loom over me? Regard, answer me, Lord my God, light up my eyes, lest I sleep death. Lest my enemy say, I've prevailed over him. Lest my foes exult when I stumble. So these lines are, great anxiety and angst and feelings of isolation. And then, but in your kindness do I trust. My heart exults in your rescue. Let me sing to the Lord who has requited me. So you see that change, that very sudden shift, and that's very, very common in Psalms.
Is that true in a psalm you might read for us about joy?
Yeah, about joy. Let me see. Well, actually, I don't know if this is joy so much, but I'll read one that everybody knows, which is Psalm 23, which starts in a confident place, goes into kind of a less confident place, a fear of death, and then comes out the other side, feeling very calm and very content. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. In grass meadows he makes me lie down, by quiet waters guides me. My life he brings back. He leads me on pathways of justice for his name's sake. Though I walk in the vale of death's shadow, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, it is they that console me. You set out a table before me in the face of my foes. You moisten my head with oil. My cup overflows. Let but goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for many long days.
Thank you. I want to add that although these are psalms that we know from religious training, most of us haven't studied them as poetry necessarily, it strikes me that the work of a poem is always to celebrate, even if it's about sadness and loss, that there's a way in which poetry takes us through the journey to the deep feelings and allows us to resonate with the fact that that is part of being alive.
Yes.
And the beauty of being alive is being able to experience everything that there is on earth to experience. Whether the poems sound archaic to some people or whether they sound modern is going to be a personal response to biblical poetry. But the work of the poem is definitely the same in contemporary poetry as it is in historically biblical poetry. So I'm very eager to hear from you about the structure of the Psalms. And I think I would just like to say that very recently, knowing this program was coming up, I was struck with some reading I did in a book called The Poem's Heartbeat, a Manual of Prosody by Alfred Korn, and published here in Port Townsend by Copper Canyon Press, where the author is talking about meter for most of the book, and then he takes a chapter to talk about free or unmetered verse. And he tells us that the precedent in English has partly to do with translations of Hebrew to the King James Version of the Bible, and that might have been an introduction, those translations, to some what we call now free verse or unmetered verse. And I wondered if you could clarify that.
Well, the structure of biblical psalm, the basic structure, is something that's called binary repetition. And it means that you basically have a line A and a line B, and those are in relationship to each other. The relationship can be a synonymous one, where what line B says is essentially what line A said, but using slightly different words. So here's an example of that, and I'm going to do the Hebrew because I think the other important characteristic of Hebrew psalmody is there's a kind of 3-beat per line. Not a meter, I think, in the way that we understand contemporary poetry, but there's a definite rhythm. And we need to remember, too, that psalms were to be sung. So I just want to say that little thing, that the name of the book of Psalms in Hebrew is Sefer Tehillim, which means the book of praises. But most psalms start with a superscription that says Mizmor LeDavid, which means the song of David, or a poem to be sung. So part of the strong meter is because these were to be sung in many ways. And later, if it seems appropriate, I can give you an example of that as well.
Is there anything contributing to what we consider lack of meter because of the switch in languages from Hebrew to
Yeah, so if you look at a lot of different translations of Hebrew poetry, of Hebrew psalms, some have tried to capture that kind of Hebrew cadence in the language, but have sometimes taken great liberties then in the meaning of the word, because Hebrew is a language that every word has many, many layers of meaning. So, for example, a word like the Hebrew word avodah, which can mean to work, to serve, and to worship. So translators are faced with a big difficulty. So which of those meanings do I pick?
Right.
Which is one of the reasons I think learning it in the original Hebrew is a really good thing. One book I'd really like to recommend for any of your listeners who might be interested is Robert Alter's book, The Book of Psalms. He translated these, trying very deliberately to keep that meter, as well as to find words that he felt captured the meaning of the Psalms at the time they were written. So not necessarily through a specific theological framework or or that kind of thing. So it's an excellent book, highly notated, very good for people who are interested in the written structure of Psalms. It's a very learned, great book.
Okay, so now you're going to go back to that structure.
I'm going to go back to this idea of binary repetition. And so this is an example of what's called synonymous parallelism, and it basically means line A and line B are synonymous to each other. I'll do it in Hebrew and then in Robert Alter's English translation. This is from Psalm 145, verse 13. Malchut tacha malchut ko'olamim, umemsheltacha bechol dor vador. The English translation, your kingship is a kingship for all time. Your dominion is for all generations. So in line A, kingship and dominion in line B are synonyms to each other. For all time in line A, for all generations in line B. So that's a very, very common structure, a very kind of common repetition. Another way of binary repetition is where line A and line B are antithetical to each other. They're kind of saying opposite things. So this is an example from Psalm 30, verse 8. And I'll do this one just in the English. Lord, in your pleasure you made me stand mountain strong. When you hid your face, I was stricken. So two very different, and just in two lines, what a range of different emotional places to be.
Absolutely.
And a third, then, structure is something called synthetic parallelism, where the verses build on each other. And this sample I'm going to give, which is Psalm 90, verse 4, has actually three lines, A, B, and C. And oftentimes, as Alter points out in his book, when three lines are used, it creates a kind of tension, because when you have binary, A and B, you have that kind of rhythm. When you insert that third line, there's a kind of unbalanced tension, and that often the writers did that purposefully to create tension, and often those three lines will occur in the middle of a psalm to kind of create that tension. So this is Psalm 90, verse 4. I will do the Hebrew and then the English. Ki elef shanim be'enecha, ki yom et molki ya'avor, va'ashmura va'layla. For 1,000 years in your eyes are like yesterday gone, like a watch in the night.
These are very beautiful, and they also make me think of haiku. The work that haiku does with that third line in opposition to what's come before. I want to say, yay, poetry is old, poetry is ancient, poetry lives. We understand the poetry of previous generations way, way back, because that part of us is the same.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. So you've taken your studies of these structures, and you have begun writing and teaching others to write psalms.
I haven't actually taught others to write quite yet. It's something I would like to do.
Okay. Well, you're doing it today in our conversation.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your work and what you wrote. And I take it that you started writing these as a consequence of having written in your journal about the psalms that you were reading each day.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Did you start writing poetry right then in the journal, or was it after?
It was afterwards. Just things were coming out of my exploration of psalms, which can really are very therapeutic in some ways, and it's like sitting with a counselor. When you're reading a psalm that is really talking, say, for example, about deep places of isolation or deep anxiety or ecstatic joy. It makes you look at where is that in my own life.
This is KPTZ 91.9 FM, Port Townsend. In case you have just joined us, you are listening to Sheila Bender and Discussions on the Writing Life. Today, Sheila is interviewing Stephanie Tavona Wright, ordained rabbinic chaplain and writer of poetry in the form of psalms.
So here's one that was reflecting a little bit on my early spiritual journey as a young person. I grew up in Arizona, so that's part of the setting of this. Through the roiling, rattling snakes of the desert, I first knew your power. Through drums and sun and chant, your presence enfolded me. No, uttered the other, our God is not in this place. No, proclaimed the other, these ones are damned to hell. In vain I strained to hear your voice, in their hymns and in their prayers. In vain I sought your face, in their sanctuaries and at their altars. So to the desert of my own making I fled, leaving utterances and proclamations behind, seeking you through wilderness sojourn, calling out to see and be seen.
It's very beautiful. And also, the structure you're working with doesn't scream out, this is structure, this is structure. Yeah. So could you give us a little insight into, maybe take a stanza and show us what you're talking about in terms of the classic psalm structure?
Okay. So here, whereas I did a kind of line A 1 and 2, and then line B 1 and 2, so did that a little bit. But through the roiling, rattling snakes of the desert, so that's the first line, I first knew your power. Then through drums and sun and chant, so kind of an extension of the desert theme, your presence enfolded me. So knowing holy power and feeling enfolded by that. So that's really an example of this synthetic parallelism. So I'm not exactly being synonymous, but I'm building on and synthesizing what comes next. And I think the other thing that's so influenced me in my study of biblical psalms is this really potent imagery. So some of the wilderness sojourn and things in the desert, I mean, that language in the biblical psalms is so strong and so powerful.
And then, of course, you lived in the desert,
and
which
I lived
certainly
in the
reinforced
desert.
that.
That's right.
So it's a very personal connection.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe when people are intimidated by biblical literature and don't think they can write in this genre, it may be because the surroundings are so alien. Like I live, as you do now, in the Pacific Northwest, and I don't see the snakes and the sand and the heat and the sun, but I see other things. And I think having that ability to understand that it's the power of the images that's conveying the feeling and the trust and the celebration, then maybe we can feel more confident about filling in our images from where we live.
There's one biblical psalm that I wanted to share that really the tone of it and the mood of it greatly influenced me. So this is a psalm, Psalm 22, this really strong language. So I'm going to read this. It's verses 13 to 16. Brawny bulls surrounded me. The mighty of Bashan encompassed me. They gaped with their mouths against me, a ravening, roaring lion. Like water I spilled out. All my limbs fell apart. My heart was like wax, melting within my chest. My palate turned dry as a shard, and my tongue was annealed to my jaw. And to death's dust did you thrust me. Wow. And so without intending to, and so this is what's been interesting to me. It's not like I read one psalm and then go to try to write a psalm like that. But what I have found now over the last couple of years being so immersed in this, that some of those words and phrases are just emerging into my own writing. So here was one I wrote recently. From door to door, you ever beckoned me. From road to road, we journeyed as one. From sun to sun, exploring wonders of creation. From moon to moon, in sweet mystery immersed. So why now does my trust falter? My eyes dim, my legs tremble. Confidence melts away like wax. Faith bleeds out like an open wound. Doors slam shut at every turn, walls rise up before me, chasms gape at my feet. The path, once so clearly marked, it vanishes into wilderness. My companion, once so close at hand, you travel on without me. Where have you gone? Where am I going? What have you become? What am I becoming?
Beautiful.
So that imagery of melting hearts, melting like wax, it wasn't until I was later reading the song I went, that's
right. And of course, we heard it right away because of your reading that one for us. And one of the things that strikes me is that one problem for people in our culture, but I think particularly for women in our culture, is speaking out strongly.
Yes.
We have been trained to be nice and to hide, many of us, whether we're male or female, to hide the realities of the dark emotions, of the mistrust, of all the kinds of things that aren't positive. And I think what you're showing us is that the example of the Psalms can help us facilitate that part of our voice and get it on the page. And in that way, I think this kind of poetry very definitely connects with others because, like you said, it teaches that there are other people who have the feelings that we've been having.
Yes.
So we feel in company with these feelings. And of course, feelings are all transitory. Things change, but we have to honor and name them in order to see them.
Yeah.
And poetry does that, and it's very strong. And I loved hearing the way the melting like wax, takes its place in your poem.
Yeah. One of the other things that, as I've been studying the Psalms, especially this last 5 months, was I started then observing my reaction to Psalms that I liked and Psalms I didn't. There were some that, there can be a kind of repetitiveness about some of the themes in Psalms. And so I found myself when I would encounter Psalms that were kind of all about how great I am and go smite the bad guy, it's like, enough already. But those that were these really deep inner explorations or these amazing celebrations of nature, oh my gosh, they just blew me away. But the language, because, and being put off, I think, sometimes by the language was of that time. It's kind of raw, very militaristic in some ways. And so one of the things that has also influenced me is I did spend a lot of time in Chicago, and there was a woman there named Debbie Pearlman of blessed memory. She died 12 or 15 years ago now. But she was actually a paid psalmist for one of the Jewish Reform congregations in Chicago. And she wrote just exquisite psalms, but with a different paradigm. Not with a more masculine, militaristic hunting, but instead more with a woman's voice. And I'd like to share one of those, if I might. Debbie was also ill very much of her life and was in a wheelchair for very much of her life. And so many of her psalms reflected her own experience. And they were ones I use a lot also with my patients because I think they capture that sense of suffering. So this is Debbie Pearlman's Psalm 5, A Lullaby for Courage, is what she calls it. O Eternal, hold me with gentleness through this long night of pain. Lay your cool hand upon my body as a mother strokes the fevered brow of her beloved child. O Eternal, clasp me to your bosom and rock me with quiet motion, to and fro as the seconds pass, waiting for the next relief, stretching endlessly toward the dawn. O Eternal, sing me to calm, humming a lullaby my grandmother sang as she arranged the soup bowl on the tray and brought it to me with the warmth of her smile. Sing me that song to soothe my soul. O Eternal, guard me through this darkness, wrap me in a soft, worn quilt of your regard, that I might find a paragraph of flickering comfort to read and remember within this long, grim novel. O Eternal, keep me safe through this night, and let the morning come to renew me, to turn me, to heal me, to find me enfolded in the vigor of your love.
And did you say that reading her has inspired particular psalms of yours?
Not directly, but I think what hers did was gave me a permission to find my own voice. So I do have one psalm that I wrote that really does build more on that women's imagery.
I'd like to hear that.
If you would like to hear that one. This was one I wrote actually in response to a specific training that I was doing in reading Torah, which is the name for Hebrew biblical scripture, is reading Torah and hearing holy voice through that, as though those words were speaking directly to me. And then we were writing, I had to write then something about what was being said to me and then had to deliver it to my teachers and my classmates. So that's kind of the context of this psalm. Sleep is still heavy on my eyelids. Slumber still clouds my eyes. The womb of dawn readies to birth the day as I open wide to your presence. Into the stillness enters your Torah, holy letter, sacred verse. From your Torah births my Torah, holy story, sacred song. Now the birthing labors hard, culture and theology struggle in the womb. Now the birthing slides easy. New understandings catch breath in the world. New understandings, fragile and vulnerable, wobbly and uncertain, they take new form. Fresh revelations, beautiful and innocent wailing to be heard. They are your children. I surrender them cautiously to my teachers. Will they hold them gently? Will they judge them whole? I share them carefully with my friends. Will they see your image? Will they feel your presence? They receive these understandings in saturated silence. They consider these revelations in fluid emptiness. Through that silence, I hear your movement. From that emptiness, I feel your voice. In turn, their understandings they now deliver, their revelations they now bring forth. Your Torah, my Torah, their Torah, new life germinating. From your Torah, new life has taken form. In your Torah, we are freshly born.
Thank you. It is really interesting to hear the female imagery as opposed to the military imagery, and yet it brings me back to the poem you read about your desert being a desert of spirituality rather than the church being
Yes.
a place of spirituality, and how among your psalms, the interplay between taking on the forcefulness, but in your voice, that comes from the psalms that may be more strident, and taking on the softness of the way people like the author that you were sharing with us spoke, Debbie
Perlman.
Perlman. Thank you. I'll be looking for her books.
Well, they've been out of print for many years,
But these
unfortunately.
days you can find things that have been out of print, which is nice. And of course, there's Interlibrary Loan, which is also very nice. So we only have a little bit more time here in the studio, and I would like to say that one of the things that I feel, again, over and over again, is the honoring in your work of the work of poetry. Poetry is a lineage art. We do write in response to the literary conversation going on before us, and you're very much writing to bring forward the teachings that you've been immersed in, and you capture yourself in the moment of taking this on and wondering about it and offering it. And it's truly the work of poetry. And I just so much appreciate your coming and sharing that with us. And so I think we have just maybe a minute more. Is there anything you'd like to say before we close?
You had asked me a question when we first talked about this, about can people without a particular belief set or theology, because Psalms are very much really talking to the holy. But I also think there is a place to talk to. I think we as humans want to be witnessed and want to be seen, even if our theology is that there isn't something out there that witnesses or sees us.
But we do.
But
we
we
can
do.
speak this
That's
way
right.
to our own,
To
build
our own selves, yes. Or to Mother Earth, or
Right.
to, things along
to
those
an
lines.
attribute, like
Yeah.
she did, the attribute of courage,
Yes.
the lullaby of courage.
But Psalms are definitely a conversation.
Yeah. And thank you so much for today's conversation.
Thank you, Sheila.
I'm your host, Sheila Bender, saying goodbye until next time on In Conversation with Sheila Bender, discussions on the writing life.
You've been listening to In Conversation with Sheila Bender, discussions on the writing life. If you have a writing challenge, author, or question you'd like us to include in future conversations, email us at sbender@writingitreal.com. Producer, sound engineer, and editor Sheila Kalav, executive producer Larry Stein, and announcer Kurt Vanderslice. You are listening to KPTZ 91.9 FM, Port Townsend.